Welcome back to another special episode of Beyond the Hood with Tractor Zoom, a Trends in 10 episode where we dive deep into the world of farm equipment, values, and supply trends. I'm your host, Andy Campbell, and in this particular Trends in 10, I'm going to break down the latest market insights that I'm seeing right now in October of 2024. I'm using Tractor Zoom's current farm equipment data to help me make these decisions so you know it's accurate, you know it's recent, and transparent. I'm going to try to do all this in 10 minutes or less. So for today's episode, it is a must listen if you're keeping an eye on the used equipment value market. In fact, if you want even more detail, fancy graphs, deep dive into economic indicators, check out our recent webinar where we unpack all of this with Tractor Zoom's latest data. You can find that over on TractorZoomPro.com or in the show notes. We won't have time to get into all that granularity here, but I will cover the crucial points. I promise you're going to walk away with actionable insights on combines, row crop tractors, four-wheel drive tractors, sprayers, and planters. Okay, check the time here. It's about basketball season, so let's tip this thing off. Combines. Let's start there. So all the classes have been trouble, Class 8s in particular this past year. They've been headaches for dealerships. Now, while supplies on all those classes have stabilized a little bit, the values are still dropping just a little bit and not quite as much as they were earlier in the year. Talking about Class 7s, take John Deere's S770. Over the past year, it lost about 15% of its value, but about 7.5% of that came in just the last 60 days. Not a pretty picture. Supply is the key, though. We're going to talk about that. Supply and demand are really driving that trend and a lot of trends for the combines. So going to the Class 8s, models like the S780 have experienced a flood of supply that crushed the market last year, crushed prices. But really, that pain is done and it's stabilized now. But that's not the same for everything. So take, for instance, Case IH's 8250. The 8250 has seen a sharp drop recently, really into July, into August, and that has suppressed the auction value in the markets. It's been down about 8 to 10% just in the last 2 months. So if you're looking for silver linings in combines, there are some. S790s, those prices have been stable lately. The John Deere's X9 1100, they're actually holding steady with prices largely unchanged pre-planting in 24 and post-planting. That's good. Good for a lot of people to hear. The big question still remains whether demand will be able to keep up as more and more of these high-end, high-price machines hit the market. We'll keep an eye on that one. Okay, let's shift gears, talk about row crop tractors. The market is showing a bipolar personality right now. Really depending on the size. For smaller row crop tractors, the values dipped about 5 to 10%. Not super severe, especially considering the ag market we're in. These machines, they're versatile. They're appealing to a lot of different markets, a lot of different commodity producers that have seen, decent gains recently where not everybody has. There's just not as much pressure for dealerships to maybe liquidate these things, not as much hitting the auction market. However, larger row crop tractors, that is a different story. The bigger models like John Deere's 8R series, they're facing a much steeper decline. Oversupply has been a big problem with inventory up about 30%. For example, the 8R 410 has seen a value drop of 11% just recently in the last couple months. And when you zoom back out of this whole thing, look in aggregate, these large tractors on average are down about 10 to 15% year over year. Even pre-def tractors, which have been the darling of the market for quite a while, they're seeing prices stabilize or even fall back to 2020 levels at auction. It's clear that larger row crop tractors are facing a much more aggressive depreciation compared to their smaller counterparts. But again, you'll want to see this one model by model. Okay, four-wheel drive tractors. Since we're talking size, not that size matters, but it does. Let's talk four-wheel drive tractors, okay? It is another segment that is taking a massive hit lately. So values for four-wheel drives, let's say between 2018 and 2022 models, 500 to 1,500 hours. They've dropped in value about 30%. The supply is surging across most of the nation, even doubling year over year in certain areas. Now, while sales, they're flat, they're declining, in places like Illinois and Minnesota, where these beasts are just as bountiful as the blessed black dirt that they're tilling up, we are seeing sharper drops in inventory turns due to just that aggressive increase in supply. They are a tough beast to handle. So what's behind these four-wheel drive trends? Well, you mix together oversupply, down farm economy, inflated machine costs, at least compared to the last couple of years, add in a healthy splash of 10 to 15% holding cost on top of all that, and you tell me how that tastes. It'll put you on your butt. Yeah, holding onto these machines for longer than you need to is tough. It is a risky cocktail. Okay, let's change subject. Sprayers are flowing in a similar direction to everything else. Auction volumes are up. They've actually tripled in just the last year as dealers try to move more of these machines off their lot as quickly as possible. Again, they can be volatile. They can be risky. Take John Deere's 410R sprayer. It's down 20% year over year on average, and it's seen just an extra 5% drop just in the last 60 days. Case Patriot's 4440, which is typically steady Eddie, it's still down 10% year over year. Not horrible, but for that machine to move that much, yeah, that means the market's moving. So why are we seeing this growing gap between auction and dealer prices? It's just that dealers aren't holding onto these sprayers for long. They're pushing onto the auction market, and they're taking out the premium buyers within the auction market. Okay, let's talk planters. Let's end on a positive note. So the turns for planters actually year over year is increasing, and it's not necessarily because sales are picking up. It's just that the supplies are being managed much more judiciously because the trade-ins are, they're not taking in as many trade-ins on the dealers' lots. They're holding fewer planters, which is driving a lot of those trade-in machines that would have been trade-ins to the auction market instead. This is driving auction values down, but not the retail listing numbers, obviously. And in some cases, auction prices for planters are half of what those dealers are listing them for. Although all of you out there know that getting to an apples-to-apples comparison with planters is next to impossible. So that is certainly an on-average type of number. But really, it's a paradigm shift. Planters with all these potential upgrades and features are tough to match the right machine with the right buyer. And that's honestly why I think a lot of dealers are opting for leaner inventories. It's just a sign that this is a tough to predict market that we're in right now. Okay, so putting a bow on this whole thing, what's the big takeaway? Well, it really comes down to understanding the supply and the demand that's currently happening in the market. And as we've seen with each equipment category, whether it's combines, planters, sprayers, you name it, they're behaving differently. And again, it doesn't matter if it's Deere, Case, Kinsey, AGCO. They're all subject to different forces, but it is largely tied to the supply that is out there for each make model. So managing your fleet strategically based on these trends can make a huge difference, but trust me, trying to track all this stuff manually is a monumental task, which is why we created tools like TractorZoom Pro. In fact, during the webinar, if you are watching it, I give a full breakdown somewhere around the 40-minute mark of how I'm using TractorZoom Pro to quickly discover these equipment insights. You check it out. I think I'm breaking down the Magnum 340 in there. So again, you can head over to our site at TractorZoom Pro to check out that webinar. We might even throw it in these show notes. But as always, feel free to reach directly out to me if you have any questions about this webinar, trends, TractorZoom Pro, what have you. Anyways, you know how to reach me. But until next time, I hope your harvest is safe and bountiful, and I look forward to catching up with you on the next episode of Beyond the Hood with TractorZoom. Take care.